Get your dirty hands off that cup before you contaminate it. Derek Sanders snatched the coffee from Marcus Williams' grip and poured it directly onto his crotch. The scalding liquid soaked through expensive khaki pants as Derek's Italian leather shoe ground into Marcus's leather portfolio, tearing the documents inside. People like you don't deserve to drink what we drink. Marcus stood perfectly still, coffee dripping from his clothes onto Meridian Tech's marble floor. 50 employees froze mid-stride, phones emerging from pockets. Derek stepped closer, his finger hovering inches from Marcus's chest. Security! Derek's voice echoed through the lobby. We have a vagrant who won't leave. The young black man's breathing remained steady, his posture unchanged. But something flickered behind his calm brown eyes, something Derek Sanders was about to discover he should have recognized. Have you ever watched someone destroy their entire future with a single sentence? The digital clock above the reception desk glowed red. 9:47 a.m. Executive board meeting. 13 minutes. Derek's chest puffed with authority as more employees gathered. I said, show me identification. Now. His palm extended expectantly while his other hand remained on his hip, blocking Marcus's path to the elevators. Marcus reached slowly into his jacket pocket. The movement revealed a glimpse of platinum, an American Express Centurion card edge, and what looked like airline boarding passes. First-class stamps were barely visible before the jacket closed again. Here's my driver's license, Marcus said quietly, offering the card. Derek snatched it, holding it at arm's length like it might contaminate him. Marcus Williams. He squinted at the address. This is Beacon Hill. You expect me to believe you live in Beacon Hill? Behind the reception desk, Keisha Johnson discreetly angled her phone. Her Instagram live stream showed 23 viewers climbing rapidly. She'd captioned it. Y'all seeing this discrimination at my job right now? Sir, I'm here for the don't sir me. Derek's voice carried across the marble expanse. I've worked here 8 years. I know every executive, every board member, every VIP who belongs on these floors. He gestured broadly. You're not one of them. The leather portfolio in Marcus's hand bore embossed gold letters. Monsieur Williams, confidential. Coffee still dripped from its torn corner where Derek's shoe had twisted. Papers inside showed fragments of corporate letterhead, but Derek was too focused on his performance to notice. What company do you claim to represent? Derek demanded. I don't represent a company. I exactly. Delivery boy, probably, or some wannabe entrepreneur trying to sneak into our building. Derek's audience was growing. 3 security guards had appeared. Mike Rodriguez, Janet Carter, and Tom Bradley. Assistant manager Carol Peterson hurried over, her heels clicking against marble. Keisha's viewer count hit 127. Comments flooded in. This is disgusting behavior. Get this man's name. Record everything, sis. Derek, what's the situation? Carol asked, though her tone suggested she'd already decided whose side she was on. Unauthorized individual refusing to identify his purpose here. Claims he belongs, but look at him. Derek's gesture encompassed Marcus's casual attire. This is a Fortune 500 company, not a community center. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I have every right to be here. Rights? Derek laughed, the sound sharp and ugly. You have the right to leave voluntarily before we escort you out involuntarily. The crowd had grown to nearly 30 people. Some pretended to check phones while recording. Others whispered among themselves. A few brave souls looked uncomfortable, but none intervened. I'm calling this in, Derek announced, pulling out his phone with theatrical flair. Security, we have code yellow in the main lobby. Suspicious individual refusing to comply with building protocols. Marcus pulled out his own phone, holding it steady as he began recording. For documentation purposes, he said calmly. Oh, now you're threatening me? Derek's voice pitched higher. Recording me doing my job? That's harassment. No, sir. It's transparent. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Derek's face flushed darker. He stepped closer, invading Marcus's personal space until they were barely 2 feet apart. "You want transparency?" "Here's transparency." Derek's finger pointed directly at Marcus's chest, stopping just short of contact. "You don't have an appointment. You don't have authorization. You don't have any business being here." Keisha's live stream hit 312 viewers. The comment section moved too fast to read. Someone needs to stop this. This man is about to lose his job. Plot twist coming. Furthermore, Derek continued, emboldened by his audience, "I don't appreciate your attitude. This entitled behavior like the world owes you something." Marcus's grip tightened slightly on his phone, but his voice remained level. "The only thing I expect is basic human respect. Respect is earned, and nothing about you." Derek's eyes swept Marcus from head to toe. "Suggests you've earned it here." The lobby fell silent except for the soft ding of arriving elevators. Even the background hum of air conditioning seemed muted. 30 pairs of eyes watched the confrontation unfold. Security guard Mike Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should just—" "I've got this under control," Derek snapped. "Unless you'd rather explain to the corporation why we let random people wander our building unsupervised." Marcus checked his phone. The screen showed several missed calls and text messages, but he dismissed them without reading. "I understand you're concerned about building security." "That's admirable." Derek's chest swelled at what he interpreted as submission. "But," Marcus continued, "your assumptions about who belongs here might be worth examining." "My assumptions?" Derek's laugh was bitter. "I call it pattern recognition, experience, professional judgment." "Professional judgment," Marcus repeated thoughtfully. He glanced at the growing crowd, then back at Derek. "Yes, let's talk about professional judgment." The clock above reception ticked over. 9:52 a.m. Executive Board meeting. 8 minutes. Something in Marcus's tone made Carol Peterson take a small step backward. Keisha's viewer count had reached 419, and she could barely keep up with the notifications flooding her phone. Derek sensed the shift too, but misread it as surrender. Finally ready to cooperate? Marcus's slight smile was barely visible, but those closest to him caught it. "I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding here, Derek." The use of his first name made Derek bristle. "Mr. Sanders to you, of course." "Of..." Marcus's politeness felt suddenly dangerous, though Derek couldn't identify why. "Mr. Sanders, before this goes any further, would you like to reconsider your position?" "My position is crystal clear. You need to leave. Now." Marcus nodded slowly, reaching into his portfolio. "Then I think it's time we cleared up this misunderstanding." The clock showed 9:54 a.m. Executive Board meeting. 6 minutes. Derek's confidence soared as HR Representative Susan Walsh approached with her clipboard and official demeanor. "I came as soon as security called," she announced, positioning herself beside Derek like a reinforcement. "Perfect timing, Susan." Derek's voice carried newfound authority. "We have an individual who's become increasingly hostile when asked to follow basic building protocols." Marcus remained motionless, his phone still recording. The torn portfolio in his other hand dripped the last drops of coffee onto marble that now reflected the growing circle of onlookers. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me," security guard Mike Rodriguez said, stepping forward reluctantly. His hand rested on his radio, though he avoided eye contact with Marcus. "That won't be necessary," Marcus replied evenly. "It absolutely is necessary," Derek interjected. "This individual has refused multiple requests to identify his business here. He's recorded our conversation without consent. And now he's refusing direct orders from security." Keisha's live stream had exploded to 847 viewers. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications as the video spread across social platforms. Comments streamed past faster than she could read. Someone tagged the news stations. This is about to go viral. That manager is so done. Why isn't anyone helping him? Assistant manager Carol Peterson pulled out her own phone, but instead of recording, she was texting rapidly. Derek's handling a situation in the lobby. Might need backup, she typed to upper management. Look, Derek said, his voice taking on a patronizing tone. I understand you might feel targeted, but we have procedures for a reason. He gestured to the pristine lobby around them. This isn't a public space. It's a private corporate headquarters. I'm aware of that, Marcus said quietly. Are you? Because your behavior suggests otherwise. Derek stepped closer again, his voice dropping to what he clearly thought was a reasonable tone. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to delete that recording, apologize for wasting our time, and leave quietly. Susan Walsh nodded approvingly. That seems like a fair resolution. No one wants this to escalate unnecessarily. The crowd had grown to over 40 people. Some pretended to wait for elevators that had already come and gone. Others lingered near the coffee station, which had become the perfect vantage point. A few employees recognized the brewing storm and tried to slip away, but the spectacle was too compelling. Alternatively, Derek continued, his earlier restraint dissolving, we can do this the hard way. Mike, Janet, Tom, are you prepared to physically escort this individual from the premises? Security guard Janet Carter looked uncomfortable. Sir, maybe we should wait for... Wait for what? Him to call his lawyer, his community organizer friends? Derek's mask was slipping entirely now. I've seen this playbook before. Create a scene, claim discrimination, hope for a settlement. Marcus's eyes flicked to the clock. 9:56 a.m. 4 minutes. You think this is about money? Marcus asked, his voice still controlled but carrying a new edge. Isn't it always? Derek's laugh was harsh. Show up somewhere you don't belong, act entitled when questioned, then play victim when called out. Keisha's viewer count hit 1,203. The comments section had become a waterfall of outrage. Someone call the CEO. This is straight-up racism. Security guards look uncomfortable. AF. Manager thinks he's untouchable. A new voice cut through the tension. What exactly is happening here? Everyone turned to see James Morrison, the chief operating officer, approaching from the executive elevator bank. His presence immediately changed the dynamic. Derek straightened his tie, Susan clutched her clipboard tighter, and the security guards looked relieved. James! Perfect timing, Derek said, his voice brightening. We have a situation that requires senior management attention. James Morrison was a tall, silver-haired man in his 50s who commanded respect through presence alone. His eyes swept the crowd, the recording phones and the coffee stains on the floor before settling on Marcus. Mr. Morrison, Derek continued, this individual has been attempting to gain unauthorized access to executive floors. When questioned about his purpose here, he became argumentative and started recording us. James studied Marcus carefully. Something in his expression suggested recognition, but Derek was too focused on his performance to notice. And you are? James asked Marcus directly. Marcus Williams, came the calm reply. James's eyebrows lifted slightly. I see. He turned to Derek. And you've verified he doesn't belong here, how exactly? Derek pulled out Marcus's driver's license, which he'd been holding like evidence. Claims to live in Beacon Hill. No corporate ID, no appointment on the visitor log, dressed inappropriately for executive meetings. Beacon Hill, James repeated slowly. His eyes found Marcus again, and this time there was definitely recognition. Interesting. The clock ticked over. 9:57 a.m. 3 minutes. Sir, Derek pressed on, missing the subtle warning in James's tone. I've been with this company 8 years. I know everyone who has legitimate business on the executive floors. This individual is clearly... Clearly what, Derek? The question came not from James, but from Marcus himself. The quiet interruption silenced Derek mid-sentence. For the first time since the confrontation began, uncertainty flickered across his features. Clearly someone who doesn't belong here, Derek finished, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket again, this time pulling out what looked like boarding passes. First-class tickets to Singapore, departing tonight. The airline's premium member tags were clearly visible. "You're right about one thing," Marcus said, his voice carrying to every corner of the now silent lobby. "Some people here don't belong." The crowd pressed closer. Keisha adjusted her phone angle to capture every word. Her viewer count had reached 1,456 and climbing. James Morrison checked his watch. "Derek, I think you should—" "Mr. Morrison, with respect, I've handled this appropriately," Derek interrupted, his earlier deference evaporating. "We can't let political correctness compromise building security." The words hung in the air like a challenge no one wanted to acknowledge. Marcus smiled for the first time since the confrontation began. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "Political correctness," he repeated. "Is that what we're calling basic human dignity now?" Derek's face flushed. "Don't twist my words. This has nothing to do with—" He caught himself before finishing the sentence, but everyone knew what he'd almost said. "With what, Derek?" Marcus's voice was silk over steel. "What exactly does this have to do with—" The clock showed 9:58 a.m. 2 minutes until the board meeting that would change everything. Security guard Mike Rodriguez was sweating despite the air conditioning. Carol Peterson had stopped texting and was staring at her phone screen like it might provide escape. Susan Walsh gripped her clipboard so tightly her knuckles were white. And Derek Sanders, 8-year veteran of Meridian Tech, stood in the center of it all, surrounded by witnesses and cameras, completely unaware that he was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his career. "You know what?" Derek said, his voice rising with false bravado. "I'm done being reasonable. Security, I want this man removed from the building immediately." Marcus reached into his portfolio one final time. The document Marcus pulled from his portfolio was pristine white letterhead, untouched by the earlier coffee assault. Corporate seal embossed in gold. Executive formatting that everyone in the lobby recognized instantly. Derek's hand was already reaching for it when he saw the header. "Meridian Technologies, Board of Directors Meeting Agenda." His fingers froze mid-air. The first line, printed in bold letters, read, "CEO Succession Announcement, M. Williams, Incoming Chief Executive Officer." Derek's world tilted sideways. His mouth opened. Closed. It opened again. No sound emerged except a barely audible wheeze, like air escaping from a punctured tire. "What?" His voice cracked on the single syllable. Marcus held the document steady, allowing Derek's eyes to scan the text. Board member names Derek recognized. Legal terminology he understood. And there, in black ink on corporate letterhead, Marcus Williams listed as Robert Williams's designated successor. Robert Williams, the founder, the current CEO, the man whose family name was literally carved into the marble wall behind reception. Derek's knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of the reception desk, his expensive Italian leather shoes sliding slightly on the marble floor, still slick with spilled coffee. The same coffee he'd poured on his future boss 30 seconds ago. "Oh, God," Derek whispered. "Oh, my God. Oh, my fucking God." The color drained from his face so completely that someone in the crowd audibly gasped. Sweat appeared instantly on his forehead, beading and beginning to drip despite the building's perfect climate control. "Mr. Sanders," Marcus said quietly, "I believe you owe several people an apology." Derek's eyes darted frantically between the document and Marcus's face, as if he could somehow change reality through sheer force of will. His hands shook as he reached toward the paper, then pulled back, afraid to touch it. You're Robert Williams. Derek couldn't finish the sentence. Son, Marcus completed calmly, and as of 10 minutes from now, your new CEO. The lobby erupted in whispers, gasps, and the rapid clicking of phone cameras. Keisha's live stream viewer count exploded past 2,100. Comments flooded faster than her phone could display. His face! That manager is finished. Plot twist of the century. Screenshot this for history. Derek stumbled backward, bumping into security guard Janet Carter, who instinctively reached out to steady him. His legs seemed to have forgotten how to function properly. Sir, Mr. Williams, Derek's voice broke completely. He tried to straighten his tie with trembling fingers, but only succeeded in pulling it further askew. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Has there? Marcus asked mildly. James Morrison stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral. Marcus, perhaps we should... No. Marcus's voice carried quiet authority that made everyone, including James, stop moving. I think Derek has something he'd like to say first. Derek's mouth worked silently for several seconds before words finally emerged. I didn't know. I would never... If I had known who you were. Ah. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. So the issue isn't your behavior. It's that you picked the wrong target. The observation hit Derek like a physical blow. His shoulders sagged as the implication sank in. Around him, 40-plus employees and 2,300 live stream viewers watched his professional death in real time. That's not... Derek wiped his face with his sleeve, leaving a damp streak across expensive fabric. I was just... Building security is important. Building security, Marcus repeated. Tell me, Derek, what exactly made me a security threat? Derek's eyes darted desperately around the lobby, seeking escape routes that didn't exist. HR Representative Susan Walsh had backed away so far she was nearly behind a pillar. Assistant Manager Carol Peterson was staring at her phone like it might transport her to another dimension. The way you... Derek started and stopped multiple times, each attempt trailing into silence. Take your time, Marcus said with infinite patience. We have a few minutes before the board meeting. The clock showed 9:59 a.m. 1 minute. Derek's breathing became rapid and shallow. Sweat stains appeared under his arms and across his back, visible through his expensive shirt. He kept looking at the document in Marcus's hands, as if it might disappear if he stared hard enough. Please, Derek finally whispered, his voice barely audible. I have a family. A mortgage. I've worked here for 8 years. 8 years, Marcus mused. In all that time, how many other people have you treated this way? The question hung in the air like a sword. Derek's Adam's apple bobbed frantically as he swallowed repeatedly. That's not... I've never... Never? Marcus's eyebrows rose slightly. Security guard Mike Rodriguez cleared his throat uncomfortably. Actually, sir, there have been some complaints filed. Mike! Derek's voice cracked with panic. That's completely different. Is it? Marcus asked. How many complaints, Mike? Mike looked at his feet. 7 formal complaints in the past 18 months, all involving similar situations. The number hit Derek like a sledgehammer. His remaining color disappeared entirely, leaving him gray as old newspaper. Keisha's live stream had reached 2,847 viewers. The comments were a river of shock and satisfaction. 7 complaints. He's been doing this for months. Justice is coming. This man is about to get destroyed. 7 complaints, Marcus repeated thoughtfully. Derek, that's almost one every 2.5 months. Derek's legs finally gave out completely. He slumped against the reception desk, gripping its edge with white knuckles. "Please, Mr. Williams, whatever you want. I'll do anything." "Anything?" Marcus's voice remained perfectly calm, but something dangerous flickered behind his eyes. "That's interesting, Derek, because there's something you should know." Derek's head snapped up, terror replacing desperation in his expression. "Those 7 complaints? They weren't random incidents. They were part of a pattern I've been documenting for 6 months. Marcus's smile was sharp as broken glass. "I've been investigating this company's workplace culture very thoroughly." The revelation hit Derek like a bucket of ice water. His mouth fell open as the implications crashed over him in waves. You've been watching me?" "I've been watching everyone," Marcus corrected. "And Derek, your behavior has been particularly illuminating." The clock struck 10 a.m. "Gentlemen, ladies," Marcus announced to the crowd, "I believe we have a board meeting to attend." Derek's whimper was lost in the sudden bustle of movement as the crowd began to disperse. But Marcus wasn't finished with him yet. "Derek," he called softly. Derek's head turned like a marionette's, his eyes wide with the desperate hope that this might all still be salvageable. "You mentioned earlier that respect is earned." Marcus's voice carried clearly across the lobby. "I think it's time we discussed exactly what you've earned." The boardroom's mahogany table stretched like an aircraft carrier between Derek Sanders and his professional execution. 23 directors sat in leather chairs worth more than Derek's monthly salary, their faces ranging from curious to openly hostile as they absorbed the live stream footage playing on the wall-mounted screens. Marcus stood at the head of the table, his coffee-stained clothes a stark contrast to the pristine corporate environment. His iPad displayed charts, graphs, and legal documents that made Derek's remaining color drain away like water from a broken dam. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone born to boardrooms, "what you've just witnessed represents a systematic pattern of discrimination that threatens this company's financial stability, legal standing, and market reputation." Derek sat in a chair that felt like an electric chair, flanked by HR Director Patricia Vance and Chief Legal Counsel Michael Jang. His hands trembled as he gripped a water glass that remained untouched. Sweat had soaked through his expensive shirt, creating dark patches under his arms and across his back. "The data," Marcus continued, tapping his iPad, "tells a disturbing story." The first slide appeared. Employee turnover. Operations Department. Derek Sanders, manager. 24-month analysis. Under Mr. Sanders' direct supervision, employee turnover among black staff members runs at 34.7%, Hispanic employees, 28.2%, Asian employees, 31.1%, white employees under his management, 11.4%. Marcus's finger traced the stark differences on the projected chart. Industry average is 14.8% across all demographics. Board member Elizabeth Crawford leaned forward, her reading glasses reflecting the presentation screen. "Those numbers represent how many actual people, Marcus?" 47 employees over 24 months. Average tenure before departure, 8.3 months for minorities, 31.7 months for white staff members. Marcus paused, letting the numbers sink in. That's almost 5 people leaving Derek's department every month, with clear demographic patterns. Derek's mouth opened like a fish gasping for air. Those numbers. You can't prove correlation. There could be other factors. Actually, Derek, I can prove direct causation. Marcus swiped to the next screen, revealing detailed exit interview transcripts. Exit interview data shows 73% of departing minority employees cited management discrimination as their primary reason for leaving. That's 19 people who specifically named you in official company documents. Chief Legal Counsel Zhang was scribbling notes furiously, his pen moving across legal pads with urgent precision. Marcus, What's our potential liability exposure here? Ballpark figures. Conservative estimate, $2.3 million in wrongful termination suits if current patterns continue. Aggressive estimate, $8.7 million if current employees join class action litigation. And Marcus's next swipe revealed a legal document with multiple signatures, which they're already discussing based on social media activity following today's incident. Derek's water glass slipped from his shaking hands, clattering against the mahogany table. Water spread across expensive wood, but no one moved to clean it. The sound echoed in the silent boardroom like a gunshot announcing his professional death. Furthermore, Marcus continued relentlessly, this pattern creates material risk for our upcoming IPO. SEC regulations require disclosure of significant employment litigation risks. Derek's behavior alone could delay our public offering by 6 to 12 months. Board member Thomas Richardson's face darkened, his jaw clenching visibly. Delay the IPO? Marcus, we're talking about an $847 million valuation. Every month of delay costs us potential market positioning against competitors like Salesforce and Oracle. Exactly. Marcus's next slide showed detailed financial projections with multiple scenarios. Delayed IPO, combined with potential settlement costs, reputation damage, and lost market opportunities, represents a total financial exposure of $47.3 million in the most conservative projections. Derek finally found his voice, high-pitched and desperate like a trapped animal. You can't blame all of that on me. There are other factors: market conditions, industry trends, competitor actions. Are there? Marcus's smile was razor-sharp, cutting through Derek's desperation. Because I've spent 6 months analyzing every discrimination complaint, every unusual termination, every hostile workplace incident in this company. Want to guess which name appears most frequently in our legal files? The room's silence was suffocating. Derek slumped in his chair as if his spine had dissolved under the weight of accumulated evidence. Derek Sanders appears in 67% of all discrimination-related incidents over the past 2 years. His department generates 84% of our HR complaints despite representing only 12% of total staff. Marcus's finger tapped each statistic as it appeared on screen. 1 manager, 12% of staff, 84% of problems. HR Director Vance cleared her throat nervously, her usual professional composure cracking. What exactly are you proposing as a resolution, Marcus? From a procedural standpoint, we need clear next steps. Marcus set down his iPad and looked directly at Derek, his gaze unwavering and clinical. I'm proposing we give Mr. Sanders a choice. The same choice any employee facing termination for cause deserves under company policy. Derek's head snapped up, hope flickering in his eyes like a dying light bulb in a power outage. Option 1. Immediate resignation with dignity intact. Full severance package equivalent to 6-month salary. Confidential settlement agreement protecting both parties. Letter of recommendation for positions outside the technology sector. Marcus paused, watching Derek's face carefully. Option 2. Formal termination for cause with full documentation. Public disclosure of discrimination patterns to relevant authorities. No severance, no references. Industry-wide notification through professional networks regarding the specific reasons for termination. Derek's hope died as quickly as it had appeared, crushed under the weight of reality. That's not really a choice. That's an ultimatum with window dressing. Yes, Marcus agreed pleasantly, his tone conversational despite the devastating content. It absolutely is an ultimatum. Chief Legal Counsel Zhang looked up from his extensive notes, adjusting his glasses. Marcus, from a legal standpoint, the evidence for termination with cause is overwhelming. But the public relations implications of Option 2 could create significant blowback in certain media circles. Could create blowback, Marcus acknowledged, or could position us as a company that takes decisive action against discrimination. Progressive leadership. Zero tolerance for bias that costs us talent and money. His next slide showed competitor analysis with stock price movements. Google, Microsoft, and Apple have all benefited substantially from public stands against workplace discrimination. Stock prices increased 3 to 7% following major diversity initiatives, with sustained growth over 18-month periods. Board member Crawford studied the data intently, her fingers drumming against the table. You're suggesting we turn this crisis into a marketing opportunity that actually drives shareholder value? I'm suggesting we do what's right for our employees, our shareholders, and our community. The marketing benefits are secondary but measurable and sustainable. Marcus clicked to financial projections. Companies with strong diversity reputations show 19% higher revenue growth and 70% higher likelihood of capturing new markets. Derek erupted from his chair, desperation making him bold beyond reason. You can't do this. I have rights. I have a contract. I have legal protections. Michael Zhang didn't look up from his legal pad, his voice remaining clinical and detached. Actually, Derek, your employment contract includes a comprehensive morality clause. Section 4.7 specifically addresses conduct that damages the company's reputation or creates potential legal liability. Morality clause? Derek's voice cracked completely, the words barely recognizable. Page 12 of your employment agreement, subsection C. You signed it 8 years ago during orientation. Zhang's tone remained clinical. Today's incident, broadcast live to over 3,000 viewers and now viral across multiple social media platforms, constitutes a clear and documented violation. Marcus checked his watch with deliberate precision. Derek, you have 60 seconds to choose your path forward. 60 seconds? Derek looked wildly around the room, seeking support that didn't exist anywhere in the mahogany-paneled space. That's impossible. I need time to think, to consult a lawyer, to understand my options. You've had 8 years to think about your behavior toward colleagues, Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying absolute finality. Today you chose to humiliate someone in front of witnesses and cameras. You don't get unlimited time to consider the consequences of documented actions. The boardroom clock ticked audibly in the silence, each second falling like a hammer blow. Derek's breathing became rapid and shallow as complete panic set in. 30 seconds, Marcus announced calmly. Derek's shoulders began to shake uncontrollably. Please, I have a family, a mortgage, my kids' college tuition, my wife's medical bills. His voice broke entirely. I'll do anything. Sensitivity training, anger management, community service, public apology. Derek. Marcus's voice was gentle but implacable as steel. The time for behavioral modification was before you poured coffee on your future CEO in front of a live audience. 15 seconds. Derek collapsed back into his chair, his head buried in his hands like a man awaiting execution. Option 1, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I choose option 1. Excellent decision. Marcus nodded to HR Director Vance. Patricia, please prepare the standard resignation paperwork. Derek's employment ends today. Vance was already pulling pre-prepared forms from her briefcase, her movements efficient and practiced. The resignation will be effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect personal items within the hour. Derek looked up with red-rimmed eyes, his face a mask of devastation. The confidentiality agreement. You won't tell people why I left? Marcus considered this carefully. The agreement prevents us from discussing specific details in official communications. But Derek, today's incident was broadcast live to thousands of people. The internet doesn't forget, and viral videos don't disappear. The truth hit Derek like a physical blow to the chest. His public humiliation was permanent, recorded, shareable, searchable. Even with confidentiality agreements and legal protections, his reputation was destroyed beyond any hope of repair. However, Marcus continued with unexpected mercy. We will provide a standard reference confirming your employment dates and basic job responsibilities. Nothing more, nothing less. It was more grace than Derek had shown anyone in years, and everyone in the room recognized the gesture. Derek, Marcus said as security appeared at the boardroom door, I want you to understand something crucial. This isn't personal revenge or vindictive punishment. This is corporate responsibility and systemic change. Derek stood on unsteady legs, his 8-year career at Meridian Tech ending not with recognition or celebration, but with shame witnessed by the most powerful people in the company. As security escorted him toward the door, Marcus called out one final time. Derek, the next time you see someone who doesn't look like you in a place you think they don't belong, remember this moment. Remember that assumptions have consequences, and those consequences can destroy everything you've worked to build. Derek's shoulders shook as the boardroom door closed behind him with a soft, final click that echoed like a period at the end of a very expensive sentence. 3 hours after Derek Sanders cleaned out his desk under security escort, Meridian Tech's official statement hit every major news outlet simultaneously. The press release, crafted with surgical precision, positioned the company not as reactive damage control, but as proactive industry leadership. Effective immediately, Meridian Technologies announces the implementation of the Dignity at Work initiative, a comprehensive program designed to eliminate workplace discrimination and foster inclusive excellence, the statement began. Within 20 minutes, it had been shared 847 times and quoted by CNN, Forbes, and TechCrunch. Marcus stood in his father's corner office, soon to be his own, watching social media metrics climb on multiple screens. The live stream footage from that morning had reached 2.3 million views across platforms. # Meridian Tech Justice was trending nationally. The public response is overwhelmingly positive, said Communications Director Sarah Carter, scrolling through analytics on her tablet. 92% have positive sentiment across all platforms. Stock price up 4.7% since the announcement. Robert Williams, the outgoing CEO, sat behind his mahogany desk, reviewing legal documents with quiet satisfaction. Marcus, your handling of this situation has been masterful. Turning a crisis into competitive advantage, that's executive leadership. But Marcus wasn't focused on praise or stock prices. He was studying the comprehensive reform package that would define his first 100 days as CEO. Sarah, I want you to schedule a company-wide meeting for tomorrow morning, Marcus said, his voice carrying new authority. Every employee, every department. We're announcing changes that go far beyond Derek Sanders. Immediate structural changes. The first reform was already in motion. Patricia Vance from HR was implementing mandatory bias interruption training for every manager, starting immediately. Not the typical once-a-year diversity seminar that employees slept through, but monthly sessions with real consequences. Each manager's performance review will include specific diversity metrics, Patricia explained to the gathered department heads. Retention rates by demographic, employee satisfaction scores by ethnicity and gender, promotion pipeline transparency. The new system was revolutionary for corporate America. Managers would lose bonus eligibility if their departments showed statistical patterns of discrimination. Money, Marcus had learned, motivated behavior change faster than sensitivity lectures. Technology-driven solutions. Marcus's next innovation was borrowed from his consulting background at McKinsey. If bias was human nature, technology could provide objective correction. Introducing the Merit AI recruitment system, he announced to the IT department. All resume screening will be conducted with names, photos, and demographic identifiers removed. Only qualifications, experience, and skills visible to hiring managers. The system went further. Video interviews would be analyzed for unconscious bias patterns, interruption rates, questioning styles, evaluation criteria that differed based on candidate demographics. Every hiring decision gets automatically audited, explained Chief Technology Officer Amanda Foster. If patterns emerge that suggest bias, the system flags them for review before final decisions. Financial investment and accountability. The reform package carried serious financial weight, $5.2 million annually, not as charity, but as strategic investment. Marcus had run the numbers. Companies with strong diversity metrics showed 19% higher revenue growth and 35% better employee retention. "This isn't corporate social responsibility," Marcus told the board during their afternoon session. "This is a competitive advantage disguised as doing the right thing." The budget breakdown was precise: $1.8 million for comprehensive bias training and facilitation, $1.2 million for merit AI development and implementation, $900,000 for expanded employee resource groups with real budget authority, $800,000 for external auditing and legal compliance monitoring, $500,000 for scholarship programs targeting underrepresented groups, real-time monitoring systems. Perhaps most importantly, Marcus implemented transparent accountability measures that made discrimination impossible to hide. "Introducing the Equity Dashboard," he announced, projecting a real-time interface onto the conference room screen. "Every employee can access anonymized data about promotion rates, salary ranges, and retention statistics by department and demographic." The dashboard updated monthly with stark transparency: average salary by role and demographic, promotion rates across all identity groups, exit, interview sentiment, analysis, complaint, resolution, timelines, manager performance scores on inclusion metrics. Employees could see exactly where the company succeeded and where problems persisted. No more hiding systemic issues behind confidential HR processes. Cultural transformation mechanisms. Marcus understood that policy changes meant nothing without cultural enforcement. He established employee resource groups with unprecedented authority, not social clubs, but business units with budget control and executive access. "Each ERG gets direct quarterly meetings with the C-suite," explained newly promoted head of diversity Dr. Keisha Johnson, the same Keisha whose livestream had captured Derek's downfall. "They're not advisory committees. They're decision-making partners." The transformation went deeper. Every customer-facing role now required bias interruption certification. Sales teams, technical support, client management. Anyone representing Meridian Tech externally had to demonstrate measurable competency in inclusive interaction. "Our clients are increasingly diverse," Marcus explained to skeptical sales managers. "Bias doesn't just hurt our employees. It costs us revenue when clients feel unwelcome or undervalued." Legal framework and enforcement. Chief Legal Counsel Michael Zhang worked with external civil rights attorneys to create bulletproof anti-discrimination protocols that exceeded federal requirements. "We're implementing affirmative defense strategies," Zhang explained to department heads. "If discrimination claims arise, we want overwhelming evidence of proactive prevention efforts." The legal framework included mandatory reporting of bias incidents within 24 hours, independent investigation protocols conducted by external firms, automatic legal review of all terminations involving minority employees, whistleblower protections with financial incentives for reporting discrimination, binding arbitration with employee-favorable terms, measurement, and continuous improvement. Every reform included specific, measurable outcomes reviewed quarterly by the board of directors. Marcus insisted on data-driven accountability that couldn't be manipulated or ignored. "By the fourth quarter, we will achieve statistical parity in promotion rates across all demographics," he announced. "By year-end, employee satisfaction scores will show no significant variance by race, gender, or ethnicity." The metrics were ambitious but achievable. Reduce turnover disparities to within 2% across all groups. Achieve 95% employee satisfaction with feeling respected at work. Eliminate statistical disparities in performance review scores. Reach 40% minority representation in leadership roles within 18 months. Industry impact and recognition. Within weeks, Meridian Tech's comprehensive approach attracted national attention. Harvard Business School requested case study access. The Society for Human Resource Management invited Marcus to keynote their annual conference. "We're not just changing our company," Marcus told the Wall Street Journal in his first CEO interview. "We're demonstrating that inclusive excellence drives measurable business results." Other tech companies began reaching out for consulting on similar initiatives. Marcus saw an opportunity for industry-wide transformation. "We're open-sourcing our bias interruption training materials," he announced at the TechCrunch Disrupt conference. "Discrimination is a competitive disadvantage for the entire sector. Our success benefits everyone." Personal accountability and leadership. Marcus made his own leadership subject to the same accountability measures applied to every manager. His performance reviews would include 360-degree feedback from employees at every level, with particular attention to experiences of underrepresented groups. "I want direct feedback from the employees who Derek Sanders hurt," Marcus told Patricia Vance. "Their experience of my leadership matters more than board approval." The gesture wasn't symbolic, it was contractual. Marcus's CEO compensation included diversity metrics that could cost him significant bonus money if the company backslid on inclusion progress. 6 months later, Meridian Tech would be recognized by Fortune magazine as one of the best companies for diversity. Employee retention improved 23% across all demographics. Revenue grew 31% as the company attracted top talent who had avoided less inclusive competitors. But in those first hours after Derek's departure, Marcus focused on something simpler, ensuring that no employee would ever again face the humiliation Derek had attempted to inflict. The reforms weren't just policy changes. They were a promise that dignity at work wasn't negotiable, regardless of who your father happened to be. 6 months later, Marcus Williams stood before 300 Meridian Tech employees in the same lobby where Derek Sanders had tried to destroy his dignity. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating faces that reflected the company's transformed culture, diverse, engaged, and genuinely enthusiastic. "Today marks 6 months since we launched the Dignity at Work initiative," Marcus began, his voice carrying easily across the space where his career as CEO had begun with spilled coffee and systemic change. "The results speak louder than any speech I could give." The numbers projected behind him told a story of transformation that exceeded every projection. Employee satisfaction, 94% across all demographics, up from 67%. Turnover rates, 8.2% company-wide, with zero statistical variance by race or gender. Revenue growth, 31% year-over-year, directly correlated with talent retention. Industry recognition, Fortune's #3 best companies for diversity. But Marcus knew the real victory wasn't in statistics. It was in the faces looking back at him. Faces that reflected confidence, belonging, and the knowledge that their dignity wasn't conditional on someone else's assumptions. 6 months ago, in this exact spot, someone decided that my appearance determined my worth, Marcus continued. Today, that assumption seems almost impossible to imagine here. In the audience, Keisha Johnson, now Vice President of Digital Engagement, smiled as she remembered live streaming Derek's downfall to 3,000 viewers. That video had been viewed 4.7 million times across platforms, becoming a viral symbol of instant justice that social media users still referenced. "The changes we've implemented weren't charity or political correctness," Marcus said. "They were a business necessity. Companies that exclude talent based on bias don't survive in competitive markets." Personal legacy and systemic change. The ripple effects extended far beyond Meridian Tech's walls. Harvard Business School had made Marcus's case study required reading for all MBA students. Stanford's Graduate School of Business invited him to teach a semester on inclusive leadership as competitive strategy. Derek Sanders, meanwhile, had disappeared from the technology sector entirely. Industry networks remembered his viral humiliation, making him unemployable in any role requiring public trust. Last reports placed him managing a small retail operation in suburban Ohio, a dramatic fall that served as a cautionary tale throughout Silicon Valley. Derek's story isn't about revenge, Marcus reflected during his TED Talk that spring. It's about consequences. When bias becomes behavior, behavior becomes pattern, and pattern becomes liability for individuals and organizations. Industry transformation. Meridian Tech's open-source approach to bias interruption had sparked industry-wide adoption. Google implemented their Merit AI recruiting system. Microsoft adopted their real-time equity dashboards. Apple invited Marcus to consult on their diversity initiatives. We proved that inclusive excellence isn't just morally right, it's mathematically superior, Marcus explained to a Senate subcommittee on workplace discrimination. Companies practicing systematic bias are leaving money on the table and talent in the parking lot. The testimony led to proposed federal legislation requiring transparency in corporate diversity metrics, the Meridian Standard that would make bias-driven management a legal liability for publicly traded companies. Community impact and recognition. The NAACP honored Marcus with their Corporate Leadership Award. The Anti-Defamation League featured Meridian Tech in their Courage Against Hate campaign. Most meaningfully, the company received over 400 letters from employees at other organizations who felt empowered to report discrimination after watching Derek's viral downfall. "Your video gave me courage to file my complaint," wrote Jennifer Martinez, a software engineer in Austin. "Seeing justice happen in real time made me believe change was possible." Those letters filled a wall in Marcus's office testimonies to the power of visible accountability. The broader message. What happened in our lobby that morning wasn't unique, Marcus told viewers during his appearance on 60 Minutes. Workplace discrimination happens daily across America. What was unique was having it documented, addressed immediately, and transformed into systematic change. The interview, watched by 12.7 million viewers, sparked national conversation about corporate responsibility and the cost of bias in business. Call to action. Marcus's final message resonated across social media, shared hundreds of thousands of times, and adapted by activists worldwide. Dignity isn't negotiable. Excellence isn't exclusive. Justice isn't optional. Every workplace has a Derek Sanders, someone whose bias creates hostile environments that cost talent, money, and moral authority. Every workplace also has potential Marcus Williams people ready to transform crisis into opportunity. The question isn't whether discrimination exists in your organization. The question is what you'll do when you see it. Your voice matters. As Marcus concluded his 6-month reflection, he turned directly to the camera, capturing the moment for social media distribution. Share your workplace discrimination stories in the comments below. Tag someone who needs to see this message of hope and change. Subscribe to Blacktail's Stories for more narratives of justice, resilience, and transformation. What would you have done in Derek's situation? What would you have done in mine? Most importantly, what will you do next time you witness bias in action? Your voice matters. Your experience matters. Your courage to speak truth to power can transform not just your workplace, but your entire industry. Change happens when we choose courage over comfort, data over assumptions, and justice over silence. Don't just watch the change. Be the change. The screen faded to the Blacktail Stories logo with subscription links and social media handles, inviting viewers to join a community committed to documenting and celebrating stories where justice prevails over prejudice.